Did you remove the thing? Alright, it's good.
محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله. السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوصيين. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة سيدة النساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر المذكور. السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بغيت وبغي الليل والنهار. يا أبا عبد الله، لقد عظمت الرزية وجلت وعظمت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل الإسلام، وجلت وعظمت مصيبتك في السماوات على جميع أهل السماوات. فلعن الله أمة أسست أساس الظلم والجور عليكم أهل البيت، ولعن الله أمة دفعتكم عن مقامكم وأزالتكم عن مراتبكم التي رتبكم الله فيها. ولعن الله أمة قتلتكم، ولعن الله ممهدين لهم بالتمكين من قتالكم. برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم ومن أشيائهم وأتباعهم وأوليائهم. يا أبا عبد الله، إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم إلى يوم القيامة. ولعن الله آل زياد وآل مروان، ولعن الله بني أمية قاتبة، ولعن الله ابن مرجان، ولعن الله عمر بن سعد، ولعن الله شمرة، ولعن الله أمة أسرجت وألجمت وتنقبت لقتالك. بأبي أنت وأمي لقد عظم مصابي بك. فأسأل الله الذي أكرم مقامك وأكرمني بك أن يرزقني بثارك مع إمام منصور من أهل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم اجعل لي عندك وجيها بالحسين عليه السلام في الدنيا والآخرة. يا أبا عبد الله، إني أتقرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين وإلى فاطمة وإلى الحسن وإليك بموالاتك وبالبراءة ممن أسس قد وبالبراءة ممن قتلك ونصب لك الحرب، وبالبراءة ممن أسس أساس الظلم والجور عليكم أهل البيت. أبرأ إلى الله ورسوله ممن أسس أساس ذلك وبنى عليه بنيانا وجرى في ظلمه وجوره عليكم وعلى أشيائكم. برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم وأتقرب إلى الله ثم عليكم بموالاتكم وموالاة وليكم، وبالبراءة من أعدائكم والناصبين لكم الحرب، وبالبراءة من أشياعهم وأتباعهم. إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم وولي لمن والاكم وعدو لمن آذاكم. فأسأل الله الذي يكرمني بمعرفتكم ومعرفة أوليائكم ورزقني البراءة من أعدائكم أن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة، وأن يثبت لي عندكم قدم صدق في الدنيا والآخرة، وأسأله أن يبلغني المقام المحمود لكم عند الله، وأن يرزقني طلب ثاريكم مع إمام هدى ظاهر ناطق بالحق منكم. وأسأل الله بحقكم وبالشأن الذي لكم عنده أن يعطيني بمصابيبكم أفضل ما يعطي مصابا بمصيبتي، مصيبة ما أعظمها وأعظم رزيتها في الإسلام وفي جميع السماوات والأرض. اللهم اجعلني في مقامي هذا ممن تناله منك صلوات ورحمة ومغفرة. اللهم اجعل محياي محيا محمد وآل محمد ومماتي ممات محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إن هذا يوم تبركت به بنو أمية وابن آكلة الأكباد اللعين من اللعين على لسانك ولسان نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله في كل موطن وموقف وقف فيه نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم لعن أبا سفيان ومعاوية ويزيد بن معاوية عليهم منك اللعنة أبد الآبدين. وهذا يوم فرحت به آل زياد وآل مروان بغسلهم الحسين صلوات الله عليه. اللهم فضاعف عليهم اللعن منك والعذاب الأليم. اللهم إني أتغرب إليك في هذا اليوم وفي موقفي هذا وأيام حياتي بالبراءة منهم واللعنة عليهم وبالموالاة نبيك وآل نبيك عليهم وعليهم السلام. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم لعن الإصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي هلت بفنائك. عليكم مني سلام الله أبدا ما بغيت وبغي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر لحد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم خص أنت أول ظالم باللعن مني وابدأ به أولا ثم الثاني والثالث والرابع. اللهم لعن يزيد خامسة ولعن عبيد الله بن زياد وابن مرجان وعمر بن سعد وشمرة وآل أبي سفيان وآل زياد وآل مروان إلى يوم القيامة. اللهم لك الحمد حمد الشاكرين لك على مصابهم. الحمد لله على عظيم رزيتي. اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين عليه السلام يوم الورود وثبتني قدم صدق عندك مع الحسين وأصحاب الحسين الذين بذلوا مهجهم دون الحسين عليه السلام في الدنيا والآخرة. صلوات.
صلوات. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عن جابر بن عبد الله الأنصاري أنه قال عن فاطمة الزهراء عليها السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله قال سمعت فاطمة أنها قالت أخال علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت عليك السلام. قال إني أجد في بداني ضعفا فقلت له أعيذك بالله يا أبته من الضعف. فقال يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به وسرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي ذي الحسن قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه. فقلت عليك السلام يا قرة عيني وسامرة فؤادي. فقال يا أمه إني أشم إنك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء. فأقبل حسن نحو الكساء قال السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء. فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي قد أذنت لك. فدخلناه تحت الكساء فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي يا الحسين قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه. فقلت وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وسامرة فؤادي. فقال يا أمه إني أشم إنك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء. فدان الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه السلام عليك يا من اختاراه الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معك ما تحت الكساء. فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافي في أمتي قد أذنت لك. فدخل معهما تحت الكساء فأقبل إن ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبو الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم إنك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابني أمير رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت نعم هما معا ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال له عليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال وعليك السلام يا بضعتي قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرف الكساء وأومأ بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل البيت خستي وحمتي لحمهم لحمي ودموهم دم يملمني ما يؤلموهم ويحزني ما يحزنوهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سلامهم وعذب لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم. فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم وأذهب عنه الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماوات إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحر يجري ولا فلك يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال أمين جبرائيل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل البيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. فقال جبرائيل يا ربي أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط أمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله. علي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدهية وقمرا منيرا ولا شمس مضيئة ولا فلك يدور ولا بحر يجري ولا فلك يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم. وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تأذنوا لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبنا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله ثانيا يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا محبين وفيهم محموم إلا وفرج الله همه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا قضى الله حاجته. فقال علي إذا والله فزنا وسئدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فزوا وسئدنا ذو في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة.
بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل. پانچ اماموں کا رہا بن کے سہارا عباس. پانچ اماموں کا رہا بن کے سہارا عباس. فاطمہ زہرا کا بیٹا بنو ہاشم کا قمر. فاطمہ زہرا کا بیٹا بنو ہاشم کا قمر. 14 معصوموں کی ہے آنکھ کا تارا عباس. 14 معصوموں کی ہے آنکھ کا تارا عباس. کوئی کیا سمجھے اسے جس کو کہے آل نبی. کوئی کیا سمجھے اسے جس کو کہے آل نبی. ہم ہے غمخوار زمانے کے ہمارا عباس. ہم ہے غمخوار زمانے کے ہمارا عباس. خود ہی مشکیزیں میں عباس کیا جاتی فرات. خود ہی مشکیزیں میں عباس کیا جاتی فرات. اس کو کر دے اگر ایک اشارہ عباس. اس کو کر دیتے اگر ایک اشارہ عباس. تیری تربت کے جو زوار بتلاتے ہیں تیری تربت کے جو زوار بتلاتے ہیں، الکما پر ہے تیرا اب بھی جارا عباس، الکما پر ہے تیرا اب بھی تیرا جارا عباس۔ شہن عباس کو سونپی جو سپاہی سلاری، ہر زمانے پہ فقط ایک ہی نعرہ عباس۔ دیکھ مشکیزہ سکینہ سے کہا سرور نے، دیکھ مشکیز سکینہ سے کہا سرور نے، لوٹ کے رن سے نہ آئے گا تمہارا عباس۔ وہ تو کہیے نہ ملا اذن وغا غازی کو، وہ تو کہیے نہ ملا اذن وغا غازی کو، ورنہ کس جنگ میں افواج سے ہارا عباس، ورنہ کس جنگ میں افواج سے ہارا عباس۔ سر برہنا جو حرم تھے سرنو کے سنا، سر برہنا جو حرم تھے سرنو کے سنا، دیکھا کسے بھلا شرم کے مارا عباس۔ چادر چھننے پہ یاد آیا ہر ایک بی بی کو، چادر چھننے پہ یاد آیا ہر ایک بی بی کو، ہر تماچے پہ سکینہ نے پکارا عباس۔ رکھ کے سر باں پہ عباس کے حسین، رکھ کے سر باں پہ عباس کے کہتے تھے حسین، ساتھ غربت میں نہ یوں چھوڑ خدا را عباس، ساتھ غربت میں نہ یوں چھوڑ خدا را عباس۔ سبت جعفر ہو عزادار کو کیوں حشر فکر، سبت جعفر ہو عزادار کیوں حشر فکر، وہ ہو گواہ پہلے سے موجود ہمارا عباس، ہو گواہ پہلے سے موجود ہمارا عباس۔ پر محمد وآل محمد صلوات اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل
Where is he? Wants to recite it. No more? Call him. Call him. Ask him if he wants to recite it. No harm, Please. No, come. I did it. Here. Marsa,
I'll say shut up.
Huh?
I'll show me once a second.
Let's go, Ali. Ali, you want to say something? Why not? Say something.
بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات صلی علی
محمد وآل محمد صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرج
محمد وآل محمد صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرج
ہائے خدا نے جب ملک الموت کو یہ اذن دیا کہ روح حضرت سرور نکال کر لے آ رہے خیال کے شبیر کو نہ ہو اذا حسین پہلے ہی زخموں سے چور چور ہوا ملک پکارا یہ مجھ سے نہ ہو سکے گا خدا میں کس طرح سے نکالوں بدن سے جان حسین بہت ہی سخت ہے یا رب یہ امتحان حسین بہت ہی سخت ہے یا رب یہ امتحان حسین ہائے میں پھر ان آنکھوں پہ ڈھاؤں ستم یہ کیا ہے ضرور بچھڑ گئے جو علی اکبر سے ہو گئے بے نور ندائے آئی دہن سے निकाल जान हुजूर। कहा दहन में तो कांटे पड़े हैं रब गफूर। मैं किस तरह से निकालूं बदन से जान हुसैन। बहुत ही सख्त है या रब ये इम्तिहान हुसैन। बहुत ही सख्त है या रब ये इम्तिहान हुसैन। मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु।
सलवात बर मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद। اسم تو میبارد از نفس باران، نور رخت دارن جلوه بی پایان. اسم تو میبارد از نفس باران، نور رخت دارن جلوه بی پایان. بر دل خسته میدهد اسمت لذت عشق مدام، بر روی بلندت سلام. بر دل خسته میدهد اسمت لذت عشق مدام، بر روی بلندت سلام. سلام ای گوهر دریای نور، ای آیه زیبای عشق، ریحانه روی خدا. سلام ای دار و ندار علی، ای بود نبود حسن، ای مادر ارباب ما. سلام ای گوهر دریای نور، ای آیه زیبای عشق، ریحانه روی خدا. سلام ای دار و ندار علی، ای بود نبود حسن، ای مادر ارباب ما. ذکر لب نوکرها سیدتی لبیک یا فاطمة الزهرا صلی الله علیک. یا فاطمة الزهرا صلی الله علیک. یا فاطمة الزهرا صلی الله علیک. اسم تو میبارد از نفس باران، نور رخت دارن جلوه بی پایان. اسم تو میبارد از نفس باران، نور رخت دارن جلوه بی پایان. بر دل خسته میدهد اسمت لذت عشق مدام، بر روی بلندت سلام. بر دل خسته میدهد اسمت لذت عشق مدام، بر روی بلندت سلام. سلام ای گوهر دریای نور، ای آیه زیبای عشق، ریحانه روی خدا. سلام ای دار و ندار علی، ای بود نبود حسن، ای مادر ارباب ما. سلام ای گوهر دریای نور، ای آیه زیبای عشق، ریحانه روی خدا. سلام ای دار و ندار علی، ای بود نبود حسن، ای مادر ارباب ما. ذکر لب نوکرها سیدتی لبیک یا فاطمة الزهرا صلی الله علیک. یا فاطمة الزهرا صلی الله علیک. Ya Fatimatu Zahra sallallahu alayhi. Salawat bar Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Jazakallah. With the loud salawat, help me to invite Sheikh Ali Massoumi to the member. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. It's off.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على والصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين، سيما بغية الله في الأرضين حجة ابن الحسن العسكري عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف، واللعن الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. Tonight is the night of Tasu'a, or the night of the 9th of Muharram al-Haram. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give the hajat of mu'minin and mu'minat who have helped the Majlis up to now. ببركة الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. The discussion that we're going to have this evening is with regards to the role that men and women play in completing each other in this dunya. Every person that is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is created for a purpose. Sometimes we may feel dismayed, we may feel sad, we may feel depressed, we may feel happy, and sometimes we question the reason why we're here. But there is no doubt that every individual that is created for a purpose. Every single one of us is different to the person next to them. If you look at your fingers, you will see that you have a different fingerprint to the person next to you. If you look at your eyes, you will see that you have a different iris to the person next to you. Your DNA is unique to you only. Every single one of us is unique in a way. And it's up to us to understand our potential and be able to use it for the good. We've been given the possibility to realize our potential. It's up to us whether we use and utilize that to the fullest and our advantage or not. The journey begins at a young age. The matter of nature or nurture begins at an age when it is out of our control how we live and where we live. For example, many of you that are sitting here, you were born or raised in a Western country. Yet your parents would like you to maybe have a cultural understanding of somewhere in the Far East or in the subcontinent. When it comes to marriage, it is very important that we look ahead. And sometimes it's not the fault of the child, but it's the fault of the parents that they are raised in a particular culture or a particular household that does not allow their abilities and their fortunes to prosper. But this does not mean that we live in a society or in a world that everything around us is calculated outside of control. There is a difference between not having control and having full control. You've seen that there are cars that are fully autonomous. They drive by themselves. And there is half autonomous, where the driver has a certain amount of control and the car takes the other control. So life is like that. There are certain things in our hands, there are certain things outside our hands. There are certain things we can change, and there are certain things we can't change. Now Allah is not going to ask us for the things that we can't change, but Allah is going to ask us about the things that we can change. Allah is going to ask us about the opportunities that we had and we do not utilize to the full advantage. Everybody can make excuses for why they have failed, but failure in many circumstances has lots of benefits. When you fail at a particular task, it means that you can reevaluate yourself, examine yourself, see why you failed, complete yourself and make sure you do better next time. If a person fails at certain tasks, it doesn't mean that they can't repeat them. However, just bear this in mind, that when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and our religion, there is only a certain amount of times you'll fall and you'll be picked up. And every time that you fall and make a mistake, it leaves this trace. It doesn't mean you won't be forgiven, it doesn't mean you won't go to heaven, but it leaves a trace. And it's really easy to sin. It's much more difficult to wipe out the sin. I remember one of the ulama used to use this example. He said, I have a white amama. The white amama is made of white cloth. He said, if you take some gasoline and pour it over a white cloth, it doesn't cost you much and it's very easy to make it black and very dirty. And it will smell like gasoline. I'll repeat it one more time. If you get some white cloth, pour over black gasoline, it becomes dirty and it becomes smelly. It doesn't take much effort to do it. Now you try cleaning it. You try cleaning the white cloth to bring it back to what it was. How long will it take you? It might take you days of different detergents trying to remove the color and the smell, and you may eventually never get there because there'll always be a slightly tint on the cloth because of the gasoline. So it's a similar case with the ruh. The soul of a human being is what matters, because your body to a lot of extent is not in your hands, and eventually your body will be eaten by worms. But it's your soul that is in your hands. To keep it clean is important, because the soul will stay with you after you're gone. Keeping that soul clean means not sinning. Keeping the soul clean means adhering to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rules. As a person who's young, it's difficult to do. Shaitan comes to you when you're at your prime, because you feel invincible. The younger you are, the more powerful you feel. You've all heard these stories that if you look at trees, trees that don't bear fruits stand still. They stand very tall. And as soon as they bear fruits, they become humble and they bend down. So as you age, you become more humble because life humbles you, whether you like it or not. Everybody who's lived a little knows that life, no matter who you are or where you live, will put you in trials and tribulations that will squeeze you like you've never been squeezed before. Which means at the end of it, you'll come out with a few grey hairs, but you'll also be more humble. But when you're young, you don't understand what humbleness means. And that's when shaitan is your friend. Because we said before, shaitan is the best friend of arrogance. Because shaitan is made of arrogance. Have you seen how when you look at babies, they cry very easily and they stop crying very easily? I don't know how many of you have babies or spend time with babies. There are babies around here, spend some time with them. Two things or three things you realize. Number one is that they take things at a very slow pace. And we think by going very fast we're going to get somewhere quicker. That's not necessarily the case. Babies cry very easily because their soul is soft. They're humble. They don't see the need for arrogance. When the soul hardens up, crying becomes more difficult for us. We think it's some sort of challenge to cry. Or in fact, as a man, for example, we shouldn't cry. And eventually it becomes very difficult to cry even when you want to cry. But if you look at babies, they cry very easily, they stop very easily. Their tears are very near them. And the people with purest of hearts are like this. You see people that are very pure, they'll cry very easily. They'll become very emotional. And also as you age, you become more and more emotional. So as a baby, you cry very easily. When you're an old man or an old woman, you cry very easily as well. In this majlis, maybe we have someone that's 80 and maybe someone that's 8 months old. The 8 months old cries just like the 80-year-old. Because the soul becomes how it should be. Another thing you see about babies that allows them to be humble is they don't begrudge against other people. You see them fight and they hit one another and they cry. Within 3 seconds they're back to friends again. They don't hold grudges. When you get older, you hold a grudge. This person did this 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I remember this, still this. Da, 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 da. It's not how a mu'min should live. The hadith says that if someone wrongs you, not only forgive them, but never mention that they've wronged you and you've forgiven them. Don't go to them, by the way, I forgave you for this, da, 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 da. No, just imagine it never happened. Just like babies. Now, why do I keep mentioning in the last few days about humbleness and tears? Because this is one of the barriers between us and closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As a youngster, shaitan wants to attract you. In some of the hadith it says after 40 years old, shaitan will kiss your forehead and say goodbye. Because usually by 40, if shaitan hasn't been able to penetrate, he's not going to penetrate after that. So it's before that you're in the danger zone. Now when I say you're in the danger zone, I don't mean just akhir, I mean dunya as well. If you look at the rulings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's not just for going to heaven, it's for going having a good time, having a good life. What does it mean to be happy? If you think deeply about it, the majority of the people around you are very busy, for example, in school, and then to university, from university to get a job, or get a degree and then a job. From the job to save up money to buy a house and then a car, and maybe a better car and then a second house, and then drop dead and leave it for your kids. Correct? Now that cycle is not happiness. That cycle is being a slave to someone else's wealth. The wealthiest of the people you see are some of the saddest people on earth. Why? Because firstly, they're not content, and secondly, they're not spiritual. There's nothing wrong with having wealth as long as you have your values in place. As a young person, one of the biggest things you need to worry about is your relationship with the opposite sex. Why? Because that's where shaitan can catch you out. If you think that by having X amount of relationships you're going to be happy, you're wrong. If you think that by being the most attractive person physically you're going to be happy, you're wrong. Again, look at the suicide rates, look at the depression rates. Many of them models. Models are paid to be pretty. So why are they so sad? So clearly being attractive is not the only thing that makes you happy. What we seek within ourselves very deeply is to be loved. And that's a natural feeling to have. And the love that you seek to have from the other person won't be achieved if it's to do with looks. I'm not saying you shouldn't take care of yourself. Spend half of your life in the gym. Spend the other half in the shops buying the best of clothes. That's okay. But don't think that happiness will come from that, number one. And don't think the relationship that comes from purely looks is going to last. Because essentially what humans need is to complete one another. We make one whole. Now the natural biology of a man is very different to that of a woman, and that of a woman is very different to a man. But they will somehow complete one another. Now that completion can't happen if it's superficial. The younger you are, the more you overlook the other person's faults. The reason you overlook the other person's faults is because you have a short-sighted vision. Because you have the shahwa or the lust in you, you overlook the other person's bad points, for example. And what happens is, as time goes by, those negativities and those points that you missed out become brighter and brighter until you can no longer ignore them. That's why it's very important to think with your intellect and logic rather than with your lust. It says in a hadith that has been narrated that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created animals and humans and malaika, the angels. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the angels intellect, aql, dun al-shahwa, without any lust. You don't see malaika committing sins, you don't see malaika committing adultery, you don't see malaika going against the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are nur, pure nur, that's it. And haywan, which is animals, مع الشهوة دون العقل. Allah created haywan, the animals, with lust without any intellect. Hence, Yawm al-Qiyamah, animals are not going to be queued up like us to be answered or questioned about their deeds because they had no intellect to be answered. And then humans were created. had intellect and lust. The hadith says whoever allows his intellect to overcome his lust will be greater and more powerful than the malaika. Let me tell you what malaika do. Malaika are the buffer zone between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Malaika are those who have a communication with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Malaika are those who have great intellect and of a nur. Malaika are those that carry out the chores from heavens. Malaika are those that are responsible for asking questions Yawm al-Qiyamah. Malaika are some of the highest beings in heaven. And in earth, they have control over many things. Allah says you can be greater, more powerful than this malaika. Which means you can have ilm al-ghayb, you can know what's going to happen tomorrow. Which means you can have ability to stop water from moving. Which means you can have abilities that far exceed any other human. Just like the A'immah alayhim salatu wassalam. The A'immah, peace be upon them, had the ability to do what they did. Why? Because they allowed their intellect to overcome their lust. So they became more powerful than the angels. Now, the other part of the hadith. If you allow your lust to overcome your intellect, listen to this part. If you allow your lust to overtake your intellect, then you become worse than the animals. Why do you become worse than animals? Because the animals never had any intellect. They only had lust, but you had intellect. And you let your lust overcome your intellect, and you became worse than the animals. So it's up to us to be higher and more powerful than the angels, or lesser and pettier than animals. The decision is ours. This is the part that we have a decision making to take. This is the part that we can take our control. And these nights are the nights of tawassul and change. The other night I mentioned that these are the nights to have revolution within your heart, within your soul. One of our friends mentioned a story I'd like to narrate for you today. He said one of these nights, and I think it was like this, as in the night of Al-Fadl Abbas alayhi salam. He said a young man came to me in the mosque, in the Majlis. He said he was very good looking, from a good family. And he said, Maulana, do you know who I am, what I've done? He said, no, you're a good looking person from a good family. He said, no, I was the scum of the earth. He said, every sin you could imagine, I've done. Every sin you could imagine, I did. My life was sin. To the point that I used to come back from all the disgusting things I did outside to my home, and I used to come home drunk. And because of my drunkenness, I used to beat my own mother. And he said, one night when I came home, I saw Qamar al-Bani Hashim al-Fadl Abbas alayhi salam. And he put his hand on my chest in a fist. And he said, enough is enough. When will you stop? He says, I was shocked. Am I dreaming? Is this real? Our Fadl Abbas coming to me, telling me when will this stop? But he says something happened within me. Some sort of revolution took place inside my soul. And I went to see my mother. And I went to her and I said, I saw Abu Fadl Abbas alayhi salam. And she said, you shouldn't mention his name with your dirty tongue and your dirty mouth. And he said, I want to repent. And I want to kiss your hand to say sorry. I realized that I cannot carry on this way. And the fact that he's come to me means that maybe I have a second chance. He said, my mother began to cry and said that I did tawassul to Abu Fadl Abbas the night before in the Majlis. And this is the answer of my prayers and my du'as. For all of you who have mothers alive, remember that their du'as can change your lives. For all of you whose mothers have passed away, their du'as can still change your lives from the other side. The du'as of a mother are like nothing else. And all of you mothers who are upset with your children, still pray for them and forgive them. And one of your responsibilities is to make sure that they find a good spouse. Because when a mu'min becomes married, it shuts down a huge part of shaitan's work. Remember the lust that we discussed just now? Once you marry, shaitan finds it much more difficult to come in. It's not that it's impossible. Unfortunately, adultery exists. But it becomes more difficult, especially if you're a good match. And when you get married, look at long term. Don't be short-sighted. Don't think about looks. Think about the family. Think about the children that you will get from these people. Think about your iman and your akhirah. Don't get married because of your lust, because of 1 day, 10 days, 1 month, 1 year. Marriage is a long-term project. And when you do get married and when you have children, there is no return. When there are children involved, you're the one that is responsible for those children. If you weren't able to have children, or if you were not mature enough to have children, then you should have done it. But now that you have, it's your responsibility to take care of them. Tonight and the nights like these are opportunities for us to make a fresh start. Regardless of what we've done in our lives, only you know. It can be the beginning of our du'as being accepted. How many of you that are listening to my voice or seeing me have hajat, have things that you want from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How many of you have wondered, why are my du'as not being accepted? One of the reasons du'as are not accepted is what we mentioned, where you have lust and you're going the wrong direction. Hence, once you become married, you're far more likely to have your du'as accepted. Number 2 is repentance. And this is probably one of the most important things. Remember the white cloth being cleared? Repentance makes it cleared. Saying sorry to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it cleared. Remember one thing, and that's that when you stand towards Qibla, Allah sees you for who you are, not the way other people see you. Right now you come to the mosque, you're wearing black. Right now you have a beard. Right now you're respected. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows who you are. He's not like me and other people. They see you for your face value. Allah knows exactly who you are and what you've done. So when you stand towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, speak to Him as in He's Allah, not He's another person. There is no curtains between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. His camera has never been turned off. In some of the hadith, it says that people will stand towards Qibla and say Allahu Akbar. The angels say you're a liar. You're saying Allahu Akbar, but you don't believe in Allah, otherwise you will not sin the way you sin. In some of the hadith, they say that people face towards Qibla for prayers, but their hearts are facing the opposite direction. Their souls are not cleared. But it's very easy to do this, and that's repentance. And that's why, as we said earlier, we find it hard to cry. Because when you're truly sorry, you can easily cry. Find any child and you tell them something, you tell them off about something, they will start crying straight away. They have a pure soul. If we find it difficult to cry, then we need to find out why. Why there is a distance between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who cares if the person next to me sees me or does not see me or judge me or does not judge me? My judge is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The only judge that matters is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who cares about the other person? So when you take steps forward, remember what really matters. When you become at the age that you want to get married, think about the project that you want to take forward. Many people enter marriage very easily, but then they can't take the responsibility and the problems arise. Some people delay marriage, and because of that they fall into other problems. But if you look at the way that we've been taught by the Amma alayhi salatu wassalam, there is a middle line where you think about the future and you take the first step. Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, wanted to marry after the death of Fatima Zahra salamullah alayha. And he asked Aqil to find him a wife, his cousin. He said, look, I want a wife who is from a good family, religious family, who have and are known for bravery. Look at the thought. Amir al-Mu'mineen wants to see what kind of children he wants, and because of that he will go to the wife. Learn. When you marry someone, think about the children that they will raise for you. Not whether the eyes are blue or green or black or brown. The sadaqah jariyah that will they leave you. Amir al-Mu'mineen asked Aqil to find someone that their tribe was known for bravery. Aqil went to the house of al-Baneen alayhi salam. By the way, do you guys know why al-Baneen was called al-Baneen? Because if it was because al-Baneen alayhi salam had 4 sons, then she wouldn't be called al-Baneen from the beginning. In fact, it's very sad why al-Baneen was called al-Baneen. When Amir al-Mu'mineen was married to her, al-Baneen's name was Fatima. Her name was Fatima. One day, al-Baneen came to Amir al-Mu'mineen. He said, can you please stop calling me Fatima? Amir al-Mu'mineen said, so why is it you want me to not call you Fatima? He said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, every time you call me Fatima, I see Hassan and Hussein and Zainab become sad, Kulthum, because they remember their mother. So Amir al-Mu'mineen said, I will call you al-Baneen from now. al-Baneen said, how can you call me al-Baneen where I have no children yet? Amir al-Mu'mineen said, you will. you will have 4 sons. But from now, I'll call you al-Baneen. So al-Baneen chose not to be called Fatima, so that the children of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam would not remember that their mother had died. Look at the emotional understanding of the lady that Amir al-Mu'minin had decided to marry. When we marry, we have to look ahead, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years ahead. al-Baneen salamullah alayha realized that she was taken by Amir al-Mu'minin for a project that was much greater, for a good that was much greater. When Abu al-Fadl Abbas alayhi salam was born, the narration says that Amir al-Mu'minin took up the baby, picked it up, the baby, and began to cry whilst kissing the hands of this baby. al-Baneen asked, Ya Amir al-Mu'minin, why is it that you kiss the hands of this small baby and why are you crying? Are you not happy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a son? Amir al-Mu'minin did not answer her. The difference between al-Baneen and Fatima al-Zahra salamullah alayha was this: that Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam not only had a level of wilayah, but she also had an ability to speak to the malaika. Hence you hear that Fatima al-Zahra kanat muhadditha. Muhadditha means a person who speaks to the malaika. Just as Amir al-Mu'minin and Aimma alayhi salatu wassalam, they did not have wahi, but they had tahadduth. And she was the only lady that had this ability. So Amir al-Mu'minin could not treat al-Baneen like Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. So he did not want to upset her. So as this son of al-Baneen grew older, he says that one day Amir al-Mu'minin was in the mosque, and Imam Hussain was there. And Imam Hussain requested water. Abu al-Fadl Abbas much younger than Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Before Qanbar could bring the water, he says Abu al-Fadl Abbas alayhi salam brought water for Imam Hussain. The narration says that Amir al-Mu'minin, when he saw this scene, began to cry. And his ashab that were sitting in the mosque were puzzled. They said, Ya Amir al-Mu'minin, why is it that you're crying? Abbas has brought some water, he's drenched himself with it. Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salatu wassalam said, you don't know what Abbas is trying to tell me. Imam Hussain asked water from Qambar, but Abbas ran and brought the water before Qambar could get to the mosque. Abbas is trying to say that I am the saqi of the thirst of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wassalam. And if anyone's going to give water to Hussain, it's going to be me, even at this young age. And in some of the maqatil, it says that every shaheed, every single shaheed that was martyred in Karbala was given water by the Prophet ﷺ at the time of their death. We narrated the last few nights how every shaheed, as they were taking their last breaths, they said, this is Rasulullah giving us water. Apart from Abu Fadl Abbas alayhi salam. The Maqatil say that Abu Fadl Abbas alayhi salam was the only person, even at his last moments, did not accept to take water from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, until my master is thirsty, I will not drink water, even in heaven. Tonight is the night of Abu Fadl Abbas alayhi salam. Tonight is the night of hajat. Tonight is the night of repentance. It's the 8th of Muharram al-Haram. In such a night, one does not need to recite Musa'ib. Tears should roll by itself. Remember that the hadith says that if a tear comes out of a mu'min's eyes and is smaller than a drop of water, it would destroy all the hellfire that will come to them on the day of judgment. The hadith says, O mu'mineen and mu'minat, the person who cries in dunya for Abu Abdullah al-Husayn alayhi salam will never cry after Yawm al-Qiyamah. The person who cries for Abu Husayn in dunya will be smiling in the afterlife. Abu al-Fadl Abbas alayhi salam is called Bab al-Hawa'ij. In Karbala, before you go to the ziyarah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, you go to the ziyarah of Imam Abbas alayhi salam, Abu Fadl Abbas alayhi salam. Why? Because he's known to be the door of Hawa'ij. You want your hajat, you go to Abu Fadl Abbas first. Allah has given him this praise. Allah has given this position. Tonight, I for one have hajat. I'm sure you have hajat. Let's go to the door of Bab al-Hawa'ij, Abu Fadl Abbas alayhi salam. The narration says, on the day of Ashura, when Abu Fadl Abbas alayhi salam saw that it was time for him to go and fight the enemies, he said his goodbyes to the ladies. As he left the tents of the women, Ruqayya, Sukayna, Zainab, they came up to him. Ya Abu al-Fadl, if you're going to go to fight the enemies, bring us some water back with yourself. Because Abu al-Fadl Abbas, the bravest man there is, they were sure that he's going to get to the water. In some of the maqatil, as he was saying goodbye to Zainab salamullah alayha, she said to him, Ya Abu Fadl, you protected me until today, but from tonight onwards, who will protect me from now? Oh Abu Fadl, you took me on a horse and you brought me here. How will I get back to Medina? ذهب العباس عليه السلام إلى أبا عبد الله لكي يستأذن منه. The Maqatil said that Abbas alayhi salam went to Imam Hussein in order to seek permission to go to the battlefield. Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam said, I will not give you permission. You are the flag bearer of the army. If the flag falls down to the ground, the enemies will be happy. Oh Abu Fadl Abbas, go back to the tents. Abu Fadl Abbas says, Ya Rasulullah, Ya ibn Rasulullah, لقد ضاق صدري وأريد أخذ الثار من هؤلاء المنافقين. I want to take revenge on these munafiqeen. Ya ibn Rasulullah, give me permission to go to the battlefield. When Abbas alayhi salam went to the battlefield, everybody I went out of his way. Anyone that came in his way was killed. Abu Fadl Abbas killed them like flies. from the left to right until he got to the water. Ayyuhan nas, Abu al-Fadl Abbas saw the water. He said, Wallah, I will not drink a single drop of this water until my Mawla, Imam Hussein, is thirsty. He took the garba of water, filled it up with water, put it on his right arm, and went on the horse towards the tents of the ladies. وَحَاسَرُوهُ الْأَعْدَاء مِنْ كُلِّ جَانِبٍ. They came from all sides. وَضَرَبُوهُ عَلَى يَدِهِ الْيُمْنَى. They cut the hand of Abu al-Fadl Abbas. He shouted, إِنْ قَطَعْتُمْ يَمِينِي أَنَا أُحَامِي أَبَدًا عَنْ دِينِي وَهَذَا إِمَامٌ صَادِقٌ يَقِينِي. I will protect Imam Hussein alayhi salam and protect my religion even if you cut my right hand. The enemies cut the left hand of Abbas alayhi salam. Ayyuhan nas, Abbas takes the water with his teeth. He wants to go to Ruqayyah, he wants to go to Sakina, he wants to take the water to Zainab salamullah alayha. At this point, one of the arrows comes to the eye of Al-Fadl Abbas alayhi salam. And when the enemies see that Al-Fadl Abbas cannot see, they come from behind. An arrow comes to the water falls onto the floor. ظهر العدو من خلف وضربه على رأسه فقد وقع على الأرض. Abu al-Fadl Abbas was hit on the head. He falls onto the ground. All the arrows go into the chest of Abu al-Fadl Abbas alayhi salam. He seeks out help. He says, Ya akha, adrik akhak. For the first time, Abu al-Fadl Abbas calls Imam Hussein his brother. Until today, he was Mawla. Today, he's my brother. Ya akha, adrik akhak. Imam Hussein alayhi salam runs towards Abu al-Fadl Abbas and tries to take Abbas towards the Khaymah. Abbas says, Oh Hussein, because of our father, because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, leave me where I am. Imam Hussein says, Why ya Abbas? Abbas says, Because I don't want to see the girls who I promised water to them. I don't want to go back empty handed to the tent of the ladies. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Al-Ali al-Azim. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Everybody who has hajat, who has tears in their eyes, recite with me 5 times. آية الكريمة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. Everybody. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. Remember your حاجات, the حاجات المؤمنين المؤمنات. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. باسمك العظيم الأعظم عز الأجل الأكرم يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج. يا الله بحق عباس عليه السلام, forgive our sins tonight. يا الله بحق العباس عليه السلام, give the hajat المؤمنين المؤمنات. Ya Allah, بحق al-Abbas alayhi salam, forgive our fathers, our mothers, our forefathers, all of those people that were with us before and they're no longer with us. Ya Allah, anybody that is sick, give them shafa al-ajil بحق al-Abbas in this holy night. Ya Allah, accept our a'mal, our du'as, our azaz in this holy night بحق al-Abbas alayhi salam, and hasten reappearance of our 12th Imam ببركة الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Times of sadness have come, the crescent has now arrived, casting gloom on Karbala, casting gloom on Karbala, the moon of Muharram. Times of sadness have come, the crescent has now arrived, casting gloom on Karbala. Veiled by the Kufans, set this moon on its course, calling out for their guide, treachery with no remorse, Muslim and his sons. What a tragedy, oh what calamity, the moon bleeds to foresee, the moon bleeds to foresee, the moon of Muharram. Times of sadness have come, the crescent has now arrived, casting gloom on Karbala, casting gloom on Karbala. On the ninth they heard the prayers of those pure souls, fought the rising sun for, perhaps this could be his role. Akbar shone so clear, this moon filled with fear, how will it possibly arise and see the state of those deer, and see the state of those deer? The moon of Muharram, times of sadness have come, the crescent has now arrived, casting gloom on Karbala, casting gloom on Karbala. It's all the 6-month infant, no water but an arrow. The night it shone its light on, Ruha filled with such sorrow. To see my Yasukar I pray, I hear nothing but his cries. Oh son, please do not arise. And with this mother sympathize, and with this mother sympathize. The moon of Muharram, times of sadness have come, the crescent has now arrived, casting gloom on Karbala, casting gloom on Karbala. Ya Hussein, 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 Ya Hussein. बेटा है तू अली का, ज़हरा की तू दुआ है, शबीर तेरा का, उम्मुल बनीन माँ है। हर सूरत व चलन में हैदर से ना जुदा है, ताशिर तुझसे कायम दुनिया में बस वफा है। आबा
عباس 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 تیرے علم کو تھامے ہر شخص کہہ رہا ہے مظلوم کربلا کا زینب کا واسطہ ہے پردیسی کوئی ایسا پردیس میں نہ اجرے صدقے میں اس کے جس کا گھر بار لٹ گیا ہے عباس 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 اس وقت جب کہ زینب دربار میں گئی تھی کاری نمازیوں سے محفل سجی ہوئی تھی ظالم یہ پوچھتا تھا غازی تیرا کہاں ہے بالوں سے منہ چھپائے زینب یہ کہہ رہی تھی عباس 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 دل کی مراد غازی تیرے علم سے پائے روتی ہوئی جو مائیں تیرے علم پہ آئے زہرا کے درد پہلو کا دیتی ہے واسطہ فضا کی کنیزی میں میرا بھی نام آئے عباس 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 شام غریبوں میں جس کا کرتا جل گیا ہے کانوں سے بالیاں بھی ہر شمر لے گیا ہے اس بے بسی سے مولا بچی کوئی نہ ترسے فرش عذاب ہو کر ہر دل یہ کہہ رہا ہے عباس 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 عباس
یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین اب تک ہے زبانوں پہ علمدار علمدار
عباس علمدار عباس علمدار اب تک ہے زبانوں پہ علمدار علمدار عباس علمدار عباس علمدار اب تک ہے زبانوں پہ علمدار علمدار
شان سے بابا کا علم تو نے اٹھایا
عباس علمدار عباس علمدار اب تک ہے زبانوں پہ علمدار علمدار
سچدہ لوٹ کے گھر تو نہیں آیا
عباس علمدار عباس علمدار
اے شیر جوان پسر حیدر کرار
عباس علمدار عباس علمدار
اب تک ہے
زبانوں پہ علمدار علمدار عباس علمدار عباس علمدار
اب تک ہے
زبانوں پہ علمدار علمدار عباس علمدار عباس علمدار
محمد وآل محمد صلوات
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليك يا رسول الله السلام عليك يا خاتم النبيين السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين سيد الوصيين السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيد نساء العالمين السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي السلام عليك يا أبو عبد الله السلام على حسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين السلام عليك يا زين العابدين السلام عليك يا باقر العلوم السلام عليك يا جعفر الصادق السلام عليك يا موسى الكاظم السلام عليك يا موسى الرضا السلام عليك يا جواد الأئمة السلام عليك يا هادي الأئمة، السلام عليك يا حسن العسكري، السلام عليك يا حجة بن الحسن، عجل الله تعالى فرجه. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. كل وليك لحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة، وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا، حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Inshallah, there'll be another question and answer session, so if you guys want to sit down and wait. Muhammad wa ala Muhammad salawat. It's off right now, so whenever you want, you can just turn it over.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. ونعطوه.
Salam. What are the key points? Sorry, this is the question. This is the thing. Salam. What are the key points or steps to verify the hadiths for people who are not so knowledgeable about Quran or Ahlul Bayt? So if you can just pay attention to, I'll repeat the question. What are the key points or steps to verify hadiths for people who are not knowledgeable about Quran and Ahlul Bayt? So the authenticity of hadiths is something that is left to the people who have ilm al-rijal. Ilm al-rijal is to do with the narrators of hadiths from the Imam's times until today, to make sure the chain is verifiable and trustworthy. Now, that's one thing. The other thing is, you don't necessarily need to know how trustworthy a hadith is. If you get to know a hadith, then you know that the hadith that are repeated multiple times, or the point that's mentioned in the hadith is mentioned multiple times, then that in itself is enough for you to have conviction. So rather than just have one hadith that you don't know about, if you keep reciting different ahadith, you will make, or you will have an understanding of the authenticity of certain hadiths. So it's very important to read ahadith regardless of your knowledge, or regardless of your Arabic, or regardless of what you know. Get to know the different ahadith, get to know the books of ahadith of Ahlul Bayt. That's the treasure that one should use. Salam, what are the responsibilities, or how the wealth should be distributed for someone who have no children? So the person who maybe does not have any children, it means that they don't have any children by birth. However, all the orphans of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, all the Shias of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, they are their children. At the end of the day, when we look around you, we see so many people that require attention, they require love, they require our help, and part of that may be financially. So the same way as if they were your biological children, you can look at these children around the world that require assistance, or they may be next door to you, and try to do it that way, and with it financially or be it emotionally, distribute your love, distribute your wealth to those that most need it, from the Shias of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wassalam, wherever they may be. You spoke about potential and using it for good. How do you know the path you're on is the right path for you? Is it just a certain feeling? So whether you're on the right path or not is to do with your conscience. Conscience, I always say, is a very good gauge to see what you're doing, right or wrong. You can make your conscience feel better, but it never does unless you are on the right path. That's number one. Number two, if you see your parents are happy with you, or if you're married, your wife and kids are happy with you, or if you're female, your husband and kids are happy with you. And lastly, if you're happy with yourself in your own skin, so when you sleep at night, you are content with what you've done. If you know that you've done something wrong, that's when you know you're not on the right path. Is matan bid'ah? If not, why and how? So basically, the ahadith says to be happy in the happiness of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, and be sad in the sadness of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Now, the sadness of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and the Majlis of Imam Hussein alayhi salam is certainly one that the narrations have been plenty in making sure that we follow, which means certain acts such as crying, such as holding majalis, such as listening to majalis, and anything else that may be contributing to it. What does that mean? So for example, in different cultures you have different types of mourning. In some cultures you have a mourning where they give out food, so you give out food. You have mourning that they hit themselves. You have mournings that they hit themselves with chains, for example, with their hands, for example, or they hit their chest, they hit themselves on the chest. These are all different types of mourning that are mustahab, because the hadith tell us to be sad in their sadness and mourn the tragedy of Hussein. So whatever comes under that guidance and under that title, it is mustahab to do. Isn't the idea of taboot and alams resembling Hinduism and idol worship? So idol worship in essence is something that Islam fought against. What is idols? Idols in the Ayyam al-Jahiliyyah before Islam, people in Mecca and Medina and Hijaz used to worship certain gods that they believed had powers. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, proved that these idols have no powers and they cannot do anything by themselves. When we touch a zarih of one of the A'immah, or if we touch an alam and so forth, it's not because we think that it has any powers at all. It has no powers. The turba of Imam Hussein, the clay from the Haram of Hussein, it has, within itself it has no powers. Clay, break it, throw in the bin. However, because it's come from Imam Hussein, because it's associated with Imam Hussein, because it's associated with the A'immah, it has powers, it has respect. Hence, the clay of Imam Hussein can give shafaat to any sick person. Hence, the prayer that is done with the forehead touching the clay of Imam Hussein, doing sujood on that, is much more mustahab than without it. So within itself, it's not powerful at all. It's a piece of metal, it's a piece of clay, whatever it may be. But because of what it represents, it becomes powerful. So for example, if you kiss the Quran, what is Quran? You're kissing maybe a leather covering on the Quran, but you're not kissing the leather, you're not kissing the colorings or whatever that may have outside. You're kissing the Quran because of the meaning that Quran has, because of the power that Quran has, because of its association with Nur, association with Jibreel, association with the Prophet ﷺ, not because it's a piece of paper. If, again, all these questions, if you're not convinced, come back to me. What is your favorite character? Salam. Whoever has asked the question, character in what? Okay. Maybe one day you can teach me the character, then I can tell you which one is my favorite. Assalamu alaikum. some Ahl Sunnah brothers argue that building a masjid on a grave, as we do with the shrines of our imams, is haram. How can we justify it or not? So, building a building on top of a grave is nothing new. Firstly, with regards to visiting graves, there are multiple correct narrations from the books of Ahl Sunnah, from the Sahih al-Sittah, about the Sahaba going to the graves and crying at the graves and asking things from the graves, especially the grave of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And to expand on it, to have a grave where people can sit there and worship, is part of that expression and tawassul to the person that's there. It's just like what we mentioned with regards to the Zarif or the Quran. When you kiss the Quran or touch the Quran, it's because of the Quran, it's not because of the material. When you go and build the Zarif, it's because of the person that's buried there. It's not because that you care about building a nice building. And with regards to doing tawassul to the dead have powers. The ayah in the Quran says, أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يَرْزُقُونَ لا تحسبن الذين قتلوا في سبيل الله أمواتا بل أحياء عند ربهم يرزقون. Don't count the people who have died in the world. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're dead, they are alive, but they are with their Lord, they're not sitting with you. Which means they have the powers to give miracles, to give hajjahs and so forth. So there's nothing wrong with building Husayniyas, mosques, or Zarih, or whatever it may be, on those graves. And also, it's the new Wahhabi sect that has destroyed them. So even Baqi, if you look at the pictures until 100 something years ago, there were buildings there. So it's the newer, more radical faction that is trying to remove them. Is it haram to do bad stuff in video games, like killing and haram food eating? So this is actually an interesting topic with regards to maybe the virtual reality world and metaverse and so forth. Generally speaking, unless it actually leads to doing something haram in real life, it's not haram. So for example, if you eat hamburgers on a virtual reality and it makes you feel like you're more likely to sin in reality, then yes. Otherwise, no. Sometimes when we do things on a virtual reality, be it, for example, watching films that may show things that are not appropriate, or playing games that are not appropriate, what happens is it affects our soul and ourselves in the real life as well. That's the problem. And then we act in a different way in reality. And sins becomes easier for us in reality. Salam, since you talked about marriage, a lot of the marriage ceremonies in the West are done with a mixed gathering, haram music. What are the effects of such gatherings, and how should they be conducted? So, I would say the biggest problem we have in our community is not necessarily the ceremonies, but it's about the marriages themselves taking place. People find it hard to find the right spouse. There isn't much support from the communities for people to meet each other and so forth. If you meet the right person and you're both in the right direction, then both of you will encourage each other to have a ceremony that brings Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You want a ceremony to begin your life with the malaika. You don't want it with shaitan. When you have Quran playing in the background, malaika are attracted to it. When you have music playing, the malaika are repelled from it. So it's up to you what sort of majlis you want to have. Think about it. You listen to music, I guarantee you won't want to listen to Quran at the same time. You listen to the Quran, you will not want to listen to music. They go against each other. Regardless of what your views are about music, that they don't go together. When you listen to music, you won't want to cry, Imam Hussein. When you listen to music, you won't want to get up and pray. When you listen to Quran, you want to. So start your marriage in a way that you want to carry on and the way you want to raise your children. Is it permissible to have a wedding with a mixed gathering? Oh, no. A lot of people are hesitant to host weddings like this, although most things are mixed. So with regards to mixed gatherings, this is a mixed gathering of one kind. You've got men on one side, women on the other side. There is some sort of mixture. In the West,
there are many mixed gatherings. As long as there's no haram that comes from it, or that you're not afraid of haram coming from it. So for example, it's not the case that, non-mahrams will get together, maybe exchange numbers and God forbid commit adultery. Then it's fine. But it's having that basis to make sure, as a young person, that you lower your gaze, to make sure that you're not looking at someone else's non-mahram. And weddings are also a means for finding a potential spouse. See, as I said, you've got a problem in the West, especially in these communities, where you don't know how to find the spouse. There isn't means to find the spouse. So putting lots of 2 tons of makeup on, or for a guy, putting on your best suit, trying to look your best to go to a wedding, and hopefully someone will see you and you will see them and you catch their eyes. This is not the best way to get married. The best way to get married is somehow, maybe a mosque like this, arranging time, arranging meetings for potentials that match their criteria on paper, to then sit down and talk to each other. And talk to each other about important things rather than just purely on looks at a wedding. So, as I said, mixed weddings, if it's going to lead on a secondary ruling to haram, it's not permissible, otherwise it's fine. With regards to meeting each other, I think there should be much more effort in these communities to make sure that people can get married. Salam Sheikh, you talked earlier about marriage. Yes, I did. Can you talk about some red flags when getting married, and how to find the right right qualities in a person, because people are so great players. So it looks like this person's already got some experience. So about red flags. Number one, a person who tries too hard. In the West, one of the things that you have is people that are very insecure. An insecure person does not make a good partner. You want a person who's happy in their own skin, who's secure in themselves, who's confident in what they have. Number two, you want someone who comes from a good family, good lineage. You want someone that has a good family support. So if they don't have that, that's a problem. If they've got a bad relationship with their own parents, that's a red flag. Number three, again, it depends on whether you're female or male, but generally someone that's very needy, that they don't have their own personality. Again, it depends on the personality. So some personalities clash. It's not always a red flag for some people, it may be for other people. But most importantly is make sure your values are similar. You want the same things in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the line. That's very important to talk about. People are great players. Yes, people put on a mask to get to what they want. And when they've got it, then they'll take the mask off, it's too late. Unfortunately, that's life. That's why you have to be very careful. And I always say the best way to do marriage is tawassul to Allah and Ahlul Bayt. Because the best of people with the best intentions still get divorced. So the best way to do is to tawassul to Allah, to ask Allah to put in your place. Allah is almighty. He can do anything in any second. Ask Him for help rather than asking this person, not the other person. Zanjir matam with knives used to be done a lot in the past, especially in Pakistan. Is it now haram or discouraged? And why was it done in the first place, when it harms individual? Okay, so as we said, anything in the shi'ar of Imam Hussein is mustahab, okay, any morning. Now, when does it become haram? If there is a detrimental effect to the health. So for example, cutting your finger is haram, cutting off your arm is haram. Why is it haram? Because it's not yours. People think their body is theirs, and it's not theirs. You don't own your body, you can't sell your body. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's mulkun li Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anything apart from that, so if it's not something that hurts you in that fashion, it's not bad for you in that fashion, then it's allowed. So for example, you drink Coca-Cola, it has X amount of side effects, right? And it's not good for you, it's harmful, but it's still halal. So the morning of Imam Hussein is halal, even if it's harmful, unless the harm is a degree that it is of a great detriment to the person. Okay? That the person needs to decide. And also the Maraja needs to decide. Different Maraja have different ruling about these things. With regards to why was it done and why is it done, it's still done in many places, in the West as well. Again, this is a cultural thing. Different people express their sadness in different ways.
Imagine, God forbid, the most loved person in your life, the person who you've admired all your life, suddenly dies. How would you show your sadness? No one can tell, right? And these people are showing their sadness. Inshallah, I understand that some people unfortunately do it for show and do it for whatever, but that's not what we're talking about. Salam. How can we justify to other faiths or Sunnis that the 14 Massoumeen are infallible while keeping below the status of Allah? So we discussed this the first night. Maybe this person was not here the first night. We said that our intellect tells us that the Massoumeen must be infallible. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could not tell you to follow someone who can make a mistake and then punish you for that mistake. So Allah, when He says follow that person must be infallible. Otherwise it makes no sense for Him to tell you to follow someone who can then make a mistake and then Allah will punish you for those mistakes that wasn't your fault. So they must be infallible. With regards to below Allah, of course they're below Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No one in any context believes them to be on the same level in any shape or form. Of course they are creations of Allah. Allah is the creator. Every single thing that exists in the notion that it needs the being of Allah to exist. Only Allah is needless of anything else to exist. So all of us have existed because we came from a mother and a father and so forth. Apart from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every energy that you see around you needs another energy to move. Apart from the first energy, that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Salam. You see a lot of content on social media that is related to Sunni Shia debates. And a lot of our youth have started questioning their faith because of some of the questions being raised. What should we do in such a situation? Educate yourself. The best way to deal with such issues is educate yourself. The more educated you are, the more you have a body armor and you have weapons to fight the war. At the end of the day, it's a war. It's a war between different faiths. It's a war different beliefs. It's a war between societies. There are people that are telling your children that they should think in a particular way, that they should dress in a particular way, that you should dress in a particular way. Regardless of Islam or Christianity or even atheism, it's all different wars that are coming to you. You cannot go to war unless you have armor. You cannot go to war unless you have machinery. And the way to fight is knowledge. Protect yourself with being knowledgeable to be able to answer the questions. We done? صلى على محمد وآل محمد.